Okay, we're going to move to public comment, and we have one public comment. To Alhambra Elementary School District Governing Board Superintendent Dr. Cecilia Maez. My wife and I would like to applaud you for all the hard work, planning, decision-making, and commitment that was necessary to commence the in-person 2021-22 school year in the safest way possible. While no mitigation strategy is 100%, we appreciate the board implemented and continues to follow the healthy teaching and learning protocols. Unfortunately, we all know that cases are surging across the entire country, and Arizona is seeing new case numbers akin to last winter. However, the difference between now and then is that most of the new cases include unvaccinated people, adults and children under 12. According to an article on CNN.com today, the American Academy of Pediatrics stated that more than 200,000 children have tested positive for COVID-19 in the last week, a five-fold increase from a month ago, and rates of hospitalization have risen, with the cases. Just so you know, this was written September 1st. The safety of our children is the utmost concern. Like the majority of the students at ATS, our children are too young to be vaccinated at this time. The recent news that these vaccinations may not be available to our children until the end of the year was extremely deflating and cause for increased concern. Politics aside, Governor Ducey does not have our children's health and safety in mind. The executive order that goes into effect on September 29, 2021 is dangerous, irresponsible, and grossly negligent as it relates to protecting our children. The classroom is a confined space with many students, minimal ventilation, and not a lot of extra room for social distancing. Requiring all students and staff members to wear masks is really the only option that can help reduce the transmission of this virus. If children under 12 had the option to get vaccinated, this would not be as significant of a concern, but this isn't the scenario right now. More children are getting sick, and the severity of the illness is increasing according to most reports. We must do everything possible to keep our children, staff, and family members safe. We implore you to continue with the mask mandate despite the governor's order that goes into effect later this month. If any board members have young children who are not eligible for vaccinations, you may share the level of worry that we have every day when dropping off our children at school. Removing this mandate could have disastrous results. Further, maintaining the mask mandate is the best way to sustain the in-person learning model during this unprecedented time. Thank you for your consideration, Rick and Carla Peloquin, parents of two ATS students, 4th and 6th grade. Moving to D, public hearing D1, second public hearing for the 21-22 instructional time model. This is the second of two required public meetings for the governing board to consider adoption of the 2021-2022 instructional time model. Arizona law requires two public hearings. The first public hearing was held at the prior governing board meeting on August 19th, 2021. This public hearing is intended for the final instructional time model to allow board discussion, comments, or questions before taking formal action to allow public comments. Thank you, Ms. Bilyeu.
Thank you. Good evening, President O'Neill, France, governing board members, and Dr. Maez. The purpose of this second hearing is to provide you information regarding the instructional time model that the school district is proposing. Approve it. We are required to hold two public hearings, as President O'Neill just mentioned, and this is the second of the two. From our first public hearing, recall that House Bill 2862 is the legislation that allows us the flexibility to capture attendance per an instructional time model that is approved by our board. In your packet, you have a draft of what we are proposing to submit to the Arizona Department of Education, and we are confident that our policy expectations as outlined by the state. This next slide outlines what we are proposing with regard to the instruction side of the instructional time model. We recognize that this year continues to present challenges to teaching and learning that we have never experienced before. Having to quarantine students, provide opportunities for learning, and capture attendance while in quarantine demonstrates some challenges. With that in mind, our educational services and technology teams have joined efforts to create the plans that you have in front of you. We are calling them our quarantine learning supports. They do, it is synonymous for us with the instructional time model. This proposal provides 4 different options from which teachers can choose to support learning during a potential COVID-related absence. We tried to capture an option to support all teachers while maintaining quality learning opportunities for students who are in quarantine. Teachers are given the flexibility to choose an option that works best for them. With all available options, teachers will check in with students during their quarantine period. So if you look in column 1, and just for your reference, the color coding identifies that the first 3 options are supported by our Canvas learning management system, with the 4th option being supported by a Google Classroom learning, because we wanted to make sure that teachers were most comfortable in providing this instruction to students. So option 1 is the Canvas pre-built model. It's an easy-to-use option that includes modules already in place in our Canvas learning platform, so a teacher does not have to create any lessons. The teacher's role is to support the students with initial access to Canvas, the Canvas platform, and to check in on the students during the quarantine period. There is no curriculum plan on the teacher's part with regard to this option. Looking at option 2, it's titled the Canvas pre-built plus model, and it offers the teacher who is a bit more experienced with accessing modules in Canvas the opportunity to enhance them by adding lessons that are aligned to current learning. There is some planning for teachers, but not much, and it is driven by the desire of the teacher to enhance the models with current content that is specific to their classroom needs. The teacher will also support students with initial access to the platform and check in on the students during the quarantine period. The option 3, the Canvas Classrooms model, is for the teacher who is more experienced with Canvas or is already using it as part of their daily instruction. The teacher will add daily lessons, which would be aligned to the lessons being taught in person in the classroom, and this model does take a more intentional effort from the teacher. The teacher will check in, like in the other 3, they will check in on the students during the quarantine period. It's important to note that Canvas is a brand new learning management system to our teachers. So the reason for the 3 levels of option for a teacher is to provide them a comfort level, because we all learned from distance learning that supporting students who are not personally in front of you is quite challenging. So the 4th option is an option that is very, very familiar to our teachers, and it's the Google Classroom model. It allows for teachers who feel most comfortable using this platform to choose and support quarantine students in this. This is something they did all last year. The teachers have the most autonomy with this option. The teachers will support students while accessing the classroom and check in on students during the quarantine. Team members from our Ed Services and Technology Department are prepared to support teachers depending on whichever model they choose to support our kids during quarantine. And they are also building very easy to follow how-to guidance for teachers, for students, and for parents, which will include video-based materials and print-based materials. These resources will be available to all in various spaces to ensure accessibility. Our Canvas module lessons align with our ELA and math using Imagine Learning and iReady, and the lessons are adaptive so that they support students in their ability levels and adjust as needed. Our district ESS, our Exceptional Student Services team, and our EL teams, our EL teams, are working to provide layers of support for our students with disabilities and our students who are second language learners with all of the modules in Canvas. So I'll pause for 1 second to see if you have any technical or content related questions. I'll be relying to support if you do.
I have a question.
Sure.
How were the ELA and math modules, the pre-built ones, how were they initially constructed?
Last question, and I'm to come and share that information.
So the ELA modules and the math modules, iReady and Imagine Learning, resources that our students currently have. So what Kira has done is created landing pages with 20 different guide students to the, also includes some responsive form, goal setting sheet each.
Yes. Adding to that, what is the potential to add additional subjects to ELA and math? But not to ELA and math, but social study, things like that.
Good question. And it will depend on the code that the teacher chooses. In the Canvas pre-built and the Canvas classrooms and the classroom, each one of those columns offer the teacher the option to add or enhance. Canvas classroom is actually, they can content there, they feel, so all subject areas in that, and also in Google Classroom. So Google Classroom also all subject area. In the pre-built models, very first column, those are relegated at this moment to ELA math just because it's much learning. So just making sure that we hit our, so knowing, just with the knowledge that your typical quarantine is usually 10 days and is 10 school days falls.
Right.
Ms. Bill, my question is, in terms of a family unit, say there are two students with two different teachers who have chosen two different models. Is that possible? Like, for example, could one student in one grade have a Canvas pre-built, and then their sibling have a Google Classroom?
Excellent question, and yes. And the reason for that is I want to make sure that the child is most familiar. Teacher is, so second grader, a teacher who is providing all of their, which means that the student, their child, the student is super comfortable. Whereas you might have a fifth grader whose teacher's not choosing to dive in so quickly into Canvas and super comfortable with Google Classroom. And so that means the child is super comfortable with Classroom. And so we want to make sure that that match is important because it's continuity for, and it allows our teachers to provide their best, because we all know that they're provide their best in what they're most confident in. So yes, the answer is yes. You have children in household quarantine that are learning, they're still supported by their teacher in the most comfortable.
Thank you. And my question, the reason I brought that up is because I could imagine from the parent's perspective, having two different models in the home, how that might cause some confusion. But thank you so much for answering my question.
First, I want to say I am very pleased that it is tiered, because a teacher can move into the next tier level based on their comfort level. I know educators are all over the place with their technology knowledge. So I really appreciate that we've offered this to our teachers. I have a quick question that really, just because of curiosity. Syncs with Synergy, does that mean that the assignments are in Synergy, or does that mean that it grades in Synergy?
So a little bit of both. The assignments are not in, but Synergy, it is the driver of all our content, all our things that are. Synergy's up here, all the information is in here. Other tools work. So that syncing with Synergy is just means that, so if there are grades that are in Canvas, it's going to transfer to.
That couldn't happen with the first two?
It can happen, hold on.
Well, it just makes it so much easier.
Thank you. So the columns that say what are synced with Synergy, that's where the child's individual sections, content that's provided in those sections during the day, that's where you see that the content provided to them is aligned to the work that's going on. Things that are not synced with Synergy are and a built lesson.
Okay, so the first
Got it.
two, so the first two are, sorry, not asynchronous.
First one is for sure asynchronous, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. If there are no more questions regarding the learning part of it, I will move to the capturing attendance part. This slide outlines the expectations for capturing attendance that we are proposing. We feel we have created an efficient process that will allow us to capture student attendance, and the process will involve a parent confirming that they are going to make sure that their child will engage in the learning opportunities that are provided. The students will be marked distance learning present as allowed by the state during a COVID-related absence if their parent attests to their ability to participate. In the event that a child is ill and unable to participate, just like when they're in person in school, the parent will call the child out and then they will be marked distance learning absent. Upon the child's return from their COVID-related absence, the school staff will verify that the student did engage as appropriate, acceptable, and attendance will be adjusted as needed. So the parent may come in and receive the materials with great intentions that their child is totally going to be able to participate. Things in their family change during that because COVID-related absences are not easy. Things may change and they're unable to participate. The staff will verify that they did indeed participate and verify that if the attendance needs to be changed, the attendance needs to change. But this plan provides us the most flexibility in being able to capture student attendance and give kids credit for the work that they engage in over their COVID-related absence. So the handout that we provided, this one, shares with you the quarantine learning timeline that we are proposing to implement this upon your approval of the instructional time model presented tonight. So today is September 2nd, and this is the second public hearing. Assuming that the model is approved, we will move to district preparing our site leaders with a message, giving our site leaders the message that their teachers will receive in anticipation of the actual models and the information being shared out with teachers on September 13th. Starting September 14th, both teams, the Ed Services team and the Tech team, will be joining in any area of readiness that needs to be supported. So if there's curricular readiness that needs to be supported, access issues that need to be supported, technology issues that need to be supported, the plan is in place for each of those teams to support as appropriate. Moving on, we'll have professional development on the 13th. All of our admin, teachers, and office teams will be apprised of the plan, how they support the plan, how the teachers can choose, how the office is supporting attendance, how simple it is, how the office is supporting attendance, and then we move into time period that starts September 15th, where the teachers are going to be pondering which model works best for me. At that moment in time, when I choose as a teacher the model that works best for me, I then can assess, okay, what's my readiness? What are my students' readiness? And at that time, they can reach out to the support that was offered to them on September 15th. The reaching out will start to make sure that everyone's ready, and implementation of the process will begin on September 27th. So pending your questions, that's all we have.
Ms. Bilio, I have a few questions. So will this model only be for COVID-related absences, not any other type of sickness or any other type of absence? Is that correct?
Excellent. So the state gives us the flexibility to support distance learning related to a COVID-related absence any of your other types of absences, so like a chronic illness or sometimes a homebound situation, we already have policies and practices in place to support those types of.
Thank you. And then in terms of the attestation from parents, how does that work? Is it a phone call? Is it a piece of paper? Is it something online? How does that work?
So I'll just give you what I envision is, mom, so Johnny is sharing that he symptomatic and time is to collect Johnny, and the office provides device, the accessories that go with the device, and the instructions and how to access like the videos and the tutorials that are on the device that will support them in this process. Then on the top is the attestation. The office explains to mom that you basically are signing here saying that you're going to engage Johnny and you're going to make sure Johnny engages in these learning opportunities. If Johnny gets sick or is unable to participate, don't worry, you just call him in absent. It's that easy, mom. Signs, if she's comfortable saying yes, that I will do that. She goes home, take care of Johnny. In the event that mom is not comfortable with that, that's fine. We distance learning absent. To me, that visual, that's as simple as it can be.
So just to clarify that it's only a one-time attestation, because in the presentation, I thought it was going to be daily. So it's one time?
It is a one-time for the station. We didn't want to burden, parents are already burdened in reporting, and so we didn't want to add that layer. We figured just like regular school, we assume Johnny's coming to school, and when Johnny's not coming to school, mom calls saying Johnny's not coming to school. So it's this process that parents are familiar with.
Thank you. And then I know that when we do things like this, there's always a lot of collaboration with a lot of stakeholders. So could you just describe the stakeholders that were involved in creating this model, specifically principals and teachers?
Sure. So the teachers are collaborating with the teachers, getting their input, saying, hey, what about this? Those folks that are collaborating with the teachers are bringing back. We showed that plan to the principals. The principals provided their input. We revised. When you say a lot of collaboration, correct. Daily meetings since this information came out, and a lot of going back and forth to make sure that we had a plan that was very supportive of both teachers and students.
Thank you, Ms. Bilio.
Going back to the learning models, when they do the Google, are they on Google Meets? Like, is it live?
No.
Okay.
Google Classroom. They can use WebEx, and it can be, they can interact in that manner.
Okay.
But they could use WebEx with any of the models they choose.
Okay. As I was sitting here thinking about it, at first I was thinking the learning models when everybody was home. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's going to be hybrid. And then now I even appreciate more what do you call it? I'm sorry, I can't think of the word, but the opportunities to have different models to choose from, because it's not easy doing both.
Yes. Just for clarity, it is not going to be hybrid like all day long what you're hearing from when back last quarter, previous quarter. It is more asynchronous with the teacher choosing to check in at a level that works, because you might have one child on quarantine and 25 in front of you, might have 20 in quarantine and 5 in front of you. That changes the level of interaction and responsibility, and that changes the workload for a teacher. So we created a plan that offers them the flexibility to engage depending on the variables that are out there. Because the variables change every 5 minutes, and it's just a lot for a teacher. And so we wanted to make learning opportunities accessible to kids while also supporting what we know is the heavy workload sitting in the classroom.
Thank you.
I have a couple notes here. I would be curious to see once September 27th, 25th, what our percentage of people of teachers, what module they choose, and whether it'd be advantageous to invest man hours in building maybe a robust pre-built canvas, maybe with additional subjects. If it would be worth it. If not, then it won't be, but it would be based off those percentages. Secondly, should a child get have symptoms and go home, that means that household is likely going to be quarantined, which means that we need a robust method for attestation that keeps our office people safe, and I'm sure our principals would work in having that handoff. We could just chuck laptops to them or something. I don't know what. No, just kidding. I had Lupe all right till there. And he's like, no, wait, no.
One of those
But-
bank things.
Right. A catapult or something. Yeah. But some sort of method or process that would be effective for our families so that they're safe and our office is safe.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And one last comment I'll add is, of course, this is a product of the ongoing pandemic. And so, whenever something like this comes to the board that would put more a larger workload on our teachers, it's really really difficult. But this is a product of the pandemic, and all is my comments is to say that to our teachers, thank you for continuing to work with families, parents, students, teachers, and the board when we have policies like this that are going to increase the amount of hours and the amount of things that they need to do on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
Thank you, Ms. Billiou. Moving to E, consent agenda. E1, approval of the consent agenda items. I call for motion that the governing board approve consent agenda items E2 through E7. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Opeza. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Conchas. Discussion?
I'd just like to highlight in terms of E7 school safety program. I think it's great that there will be this item covers full-time counselor at ATS in Madrid, and I think that's very important for social emotional well-being of our students. And yeah, just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to highlight our ongoing partnership with the Arizona Sustainability Alliance. I think every time they come up here, I always get excited because they've been a wonderful partner with our school district, and they're really a forward-thinking organization. And to have our students be exposed to the career paths associated with sustainability, the learning associated with that, and also how it affects our environment. It's really, really important to me, and it's really, I'm glad to see that partnership continue to flourish. And another tip of the hat to our Girls Innovation Academy, which is now going to be serving a much larger population, which is also very exciting for our school district.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
To F, Human Resources, F1, 2021-22, Phase 2, Recruitment and Retention. Do I have a motion that the governing board approve the Phase 2 Recruitment and Retention stipend for the 21-22 school year?
I move that we approve the Phase 2 recruitment and retention stipend for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Conchas. Any discussion? I would really like to see this more money, but maybe next year, we can offer a little more recruitment and retention to our staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
G, Business Services. G1, 2021-2022 Alhambra School District Capital Plan Approval. Do I have a motion that the governing board approve the 2021-2022 Alhambra School District Capital Plan?
I move that the governing board approve the attached 2021-2022 Alhambra School District Capital Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Conchas. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
H, Board Policies. H1, First Reading Policy IJ, Instructional Resources and Materials. Do I have a motion that the governing board approve the first reading of Policy IJ?
I move that the governing board approve first reading of policy IJ.
Thank you, Mr. Conchas. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
H2, First Reading Policy IJJ, Textbook Supplemental Materials Selection and Adoption. Do I have a motion that the governing board approve the first reading of Policy IJJ?
I move that the governing board approve the first reading of policy IJJ.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. H3, First Reading Policy JK, Student Discipline. JKD, Student Suspension. JKE, Expulsion of Students. Do I have a motion that the governing board approve the first reading of policies JK, JKD, and JKE?
I move that we approve first reading of policies JKD, and JKE.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I, New Business. I1, Resolution. The Alhambra ESD Governing Board will resolve to adopt the proposed resolution regarding vendor policies and practices that promote diversity. Do I have a motion that the governing board approve the proposed resolution regarding vendor policies and practices that promote diversity?
I move that we adopt the proposed resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Conchas. All those in favor? Or I'm sorry, do I have any discussion?
Yes, I want to give a big thank you to Alana for working with us to create this policy. I think this is just one small piece of how us as a district can leverage our entity to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within not only education, but everything that kind of we touch. I think it's important that we align ourselves with organizations that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is, again, just a small part of lots of things that are in the works for our school district to make sure that happens.
And I would like to thank Mr. Solorio for bringing this to the board.
Madam President, I would also like to thank the entire diversity and equity team, Alana and Mr. Solorio, for bringing this. One place in particular that I can see this being enacted soon is looking at our physical security contract that we have with Grand Canyon Security Associates. The name is something like that, but I think that it's important that we review who our physical security vendor is and making sure that they are adhering to this resolution. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Solorio, would you like to read the resolution? Don't have to, but if you would like to.
Yes, it's going to be a mouthful. I was always in school. I always hated being called on to read, just so you know. But it was my pleasure to be involved in this, and and again, I take great pride in our district now kind of having this resolution on as part of what our district stands for. So without further ado, whereas the governing board of the Alhambra Elementary School District is committed to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in relation to race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, disability or sexual orientation, and gender identity or gender expression in its operations and delivery of educational programs and services as a public school district. Whereas board policy AC states, the board is committed to a policy of non-discrimination in relation to race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, disability or sexual orientation, and gender identity or gender expression. This policy will prevail in all matters concerning staff members, students, the public, educational programs and services, and individuals with whom the board does business. Whereas the board believes that in furtherance of policy AC, it is in the best interest of the district and its students, staff, and community members to encourage persons, organizations, and entities with which the district does business to adopt policies and practices that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in relation to race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, disability, or sexual orientation and gender identity or gender expression. Whereas the board believes that it is in best interest of the district and its students, staff, and community members to encourage organizations to which the district belongs or that sponsor events or training for district personnel or board members to adopt policies and practices that promote diversity, equity, inclusion in relation to race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, disability, or sexual orientation, and gender identity or gender expression. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the district superintendent shall have the authority to adopt regulations and rules that encourage persons, organizations, and entities with which it does business to adopt policies that promote diversity, equity, inclusion in relation to sex, race, or color, religion, sex, age, national origin, disability, or sexual orientation, and gender identity or gender expression to the extent allowed by the law. It is further resolved that the district superintendent shall have the authority to adopt regulations and rules that encourage organizations to which it belongs or that sponsor events or trainings for district personnel or board members to adopt policies and practices that promote diversity, equity, inclusion in relation to race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, disability, or sexual orientation, and gender identity or gender expression to the extent allowed by the law. It is further resolved that the board president has the authority to sign this resolution on behalf of the board, and the board clerk may attest to its adoption.
I will say that every teacher you had is very proud of you for reading that out loud. You did an excellent job. Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Moving to I2, 2021-2022 instructional time model. We have a motion that the governing board adopt the proposed instructional time model for the 2021-2022 school year.
I move to adopt the instructional time model for the 2021-2022 school year. My teachers would not be proud of me.
Thank you, Mr. Oropeza. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Move to J and informational items, J1, Aesd and student enrollment. Mr. Huseman.
Good evening, President O'Neill France, members of the board, Dr. Myers. The purpose of the presentation tonight is regarding student enrollment and how to read the weekly student enrollment report. Let me also say that the biggest misconception regarding enrollment and funding is that we receive funding from the state based on attendance, daily attendance, which is actually the misconception. We actually receive enrollment funding based on the students that are enrolled in school. So whether or not they're absent, unless it's 10 consecutive days of unexcused absence, we still receive funding from the state. Here we go. The enrollment projections for the next school year are developed in the late fall each year. Traditionally use a 3-year rolling average of grade level cohorts. However, with recent changes due to COVID-19, we placed a strong emphasis on prior year enrollment. These enrollment projections are used by Human Resources and Claire Perry to determine how many teachers and staff are needed at each school. Beginning in December, she then meets with principals and leadership teams to go over the staffing numbers and solicit feedback from them prior to making the numbers final. Once the school year begins, we start to get actual enrollment. After the first 10 days of school, students that did not show during the summer and come back to school are dropped, and therefore we have actual enrollment. The Human Resources team then meets with a contingency committee to look at average classroom sizes at the schools and grade levels to determine if additional teachers or staff are needed. This year, the contingency committee added kindergarten classes at Carol G. Peck, Barcelona, and Cordova schools. If we look at Alhambra enrollment history, we find that enrollment in the district peaked 2005-2006 school year when we had 15,590 students. Currently, the district has 10,117 students, and this is an enrollment decline over that 15-year period of 35%. A few years ago, the district enlisted the help of a professional demographer who looked at enrollment across the district, and he determined that Alhambra enrollment losses could be attributed to things such as declining birth rates and more students attending charter schools. District enrollment had a decline of almost 10% last year during the COVID pandemic. And this year we projected enrollment at a 6% decline. We're currently at about 101% of our enrollment projection. So that's good news. Did you bring your magnifying glasses or anything like that? Okay. You have this report with you and you get weekly, it's available in a Google folder that we have shared with you. But each week, Robin Deffenbaugh from our Student Information Systems team prepares an enrollment report. This enrollment report displays the number of students at each grade level in school and average class sizes at each grade in school. The enrollment it also compares the projected enrollment to the enrollment from the same week last school year. Let me take a few minutes to walk the board through the enrollment report, and point out key features. Okay, so the first percentage represents the student enrollment compared to the projection estimate. You can see that circled number. Next, you can see it, the number 28.3, the circled example, is the average number of students in 3rd grade at Barcelona. That number in each cell on the report in that position is the average number of students in each classroom across grade level. Next, this number is 6, and that is the number of teachers in Choice Learning Academy in 6th grade. This number that's circled is the number of students at Granada East in 5th grade. It's 174. Just pointing out numbers on various rows so that you can see without any, without a context, it's very difficult to read this report because you don't interpret it. So you might use this as your ongoing key. This number down at the bottom is the percent of student enrollment compared to the district-wide projection. So as I mentioned, we're just over 101% compared to our projected enrollment. So we're over what we projected. So the guy that projected the enrollment was wrong. And that was me. I'm never right on this. This is the total students in the district. So this is last week's report. So I did say that we had 10,117 students. That's our current weekly report. I developed this report last week. And then this is this percentage represents the increase or decline compared to the same week last year. So at this present time, we're just under 6% declining enrollment, which is better than last year when we were at a 10% decline and slightly better than what we have. Our enrollment report helps students or schools in the district track student enrollment by school and grade levels. And as you can see, it contains valuable information that can be used for staffing and marketing across the district as we seek to retain and recruit new students. Subjects to your questions, that concludes this portion of the presentation.
As a numbers guy, I love this spreadsheet, and give yourself credit. 101% projection, 100 students. That's pretty good for the district. That's a pretty good calculation. I would enjoy seeing this regularly, and I think it would benefit our board greatly to see this and see how our schools are doing grade by grade. Thank you for this information.
Absolutely, you're welcome. And the report is completed each Monday morning. So we will be putting it in the same Google folder that we shared with you each Monday. So you can always access that Google folder called the 21-22 student enrollment folder. And it's in there every Monday. Check out and see how we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you.
So to clarify, so even if a number is over 100%, which means we're beating projections, that may still, that doesn't necessarily imply that our population is stable or not going down. So a school in theory could be at 105% and still have lost students depending on the projected decline of the school district. Is that?
That is correct. On the report in the next column over from the current total enrollment at each school, it has the enrollment at that school the same week last year.
Okay.
So back button's not working, but it's the next column and it says the previous year, and that's the enrollment at that school. So right there, it says 8/24/2021 total. And then 2 columns over, it says 8/21/2020. I need to get classes reviewed. But you can see the number of students at ATS currently is 729 students. And last year at this time, they had 796. Thank you. Too far from the screen. Does that make sense, Mr. Slory?
Yeah, it does. It would be nice if, just for the sake of clarity, and you know, I'm probably not as much as a numbers guy as board member Oropeza. So if we had that same percentage, that's kind of floating in the top left corner, floating in the top left corner of that box. So then we can have kind of a clear indication of what's the percentage change relative to that school or the previous school year. I think that will help us see just clearly the trends as far as, you know, as we're implementing more of these academy modeled schools, and have we made changes as far as school locations and stuff like that, seeing what's worked, what's doesn't, what's still trending in certain directions. I think it'd just be useful information for us as we kind of move into this new era of leadership, and how that guidance and the leadership is you know, backed by the data. It's available. Just I'm probably going to be crunching a lot of numbers to really clearly see the data that will help guide us in that direction.
Thank you for that feedback. We'll look at incorporate that into this week's report.
I am hoping that I think it was like 60 students that we lost at Valencia newcomers. I'm hoping that we're tracking maybe students, because I'd like to know if those 60 students folded into one of our other school sites. I'm also hoping that the 311 at the online academy all came from different districts and didn't go from our schools, other school sites. But is there a way to track because Valencia does fold back in, they don't stay there forever. So is there a way to track if those students stay with us? Obviously, some move, but if they're still in the neighborhood, do they go to an?
Yes. We can track those students by their perm ID number to see which school they're currently. If it's within our district. If it's not within our district, we have to look them up Aesd, which is the state reporting system, to see which district they're part of. But we could also track them. And then we also use grid codes within Synergy. So that tells us the address that the student lives in, or they come from a district that's outside of our district. It tells us which district they're coming from. So we would be able to look up our students and see which district, either which Alhambra school or which district that they're.
I'd be curious to know what percentage of our students are out of district
At the AOA or in?
everywhere.
Okay. And on the capital plan that was the number of students. That was the number of students from outside the district by district but I can get you this year's number. How many students we have from each district across the state. It's mainly our neighboring districts, but we have some from even places like Scottsdale and Kyrene, Tempe, places like that. So we have that information. I will get it.
Thank you. I'm going to be looking really closely to see exactly what neighboring schools they come from.
We do have a few from Phoenix Elementary, so.
Just a quick comment. So I'm not a math major, I'm political science. So I'm not a numbers guy here, but I can see that, I appreciate this grid because, seeing that there are an average class size in Harold G. Peck kindergarten of 36 and in sixth grade of 37.5. It really, it really is astonishing and thinking about the instructional model that we passed today and how, if those teachers are going to potentially have to manage their quarantine students, but also they're in person with 36 or 37.5 average class size, that is concerning. So I appreciate these numbers and I look forward to looking at this report on a weekly basis, especially with the current housing climate and what's happening with the eviction moratorium expiring and understanding how that will affect many of our zip codes in the Alhambra School District and displacing a lot of our families. So I appreciate these numbers and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conches. And in my former life in the district, 25 years ago, I was a teacher of social studies, but I became a numbers guy. So I can turn you into a numbers guy someday like I did. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Huseman. Don't leave. J2, capital spending plan.
Okay, thank you, President O'Neill France, members of the board, Superintendent Mayes. My first question is, are you sure you're ready for a presentation by Scott Huseman 2 times at 1 meeting? I'll give you an out right now. We can table this to the next meeting. Okay. I'm going to make this one quicker because Dan just told me there's a football game on tonight and I cannot just take forever here.
It's only 4 slides. We'll be all right.
Tonight, I'd like to share a presentation with the board related to our initial capital spending plan for the 21-22 school year. Capital spending can generically be defined as expenses related to items purchased that last over 1 year. These may include things such as furniture and equipment, school buses, air conditioning units, fire alarm systems, remodeling and renovation projects, and new construction. First, I'll present our plans for our annual allocation of $5 million from our capital override. The capital override is a voter-approved measure that allows the district to spend an additional $5 million annually for items related to student transportation, student technology, and facility improvements. The capital override was reauthorized in November of 2020 and is valid for 7 years. In the student transportation area, the district has current purchase orders for 3 special needs and 2 regular education school buses. These buses will replace aging buses in our fleet. In student technology, the district will be spending funds to upgrade internet infrastructure. The spending is also being supplemented with more than $1 million from the federal E-rate program. Please note in the student technology area that the district normally spends $2.1 million of our override funding for one-to-one student and teacher devices. However, we were able to leverage Esser funding this year for the next year or two for this purpose, which will free up capital override spending for other areas. Finally, in facilities, the district has plans to remodel, renovate, and replace items listed, such as school restrooms, district maintenance vehicles, and fire alarm and intercom systems. As you can see, there are many items needed that demand our attention to keep our student transportation, student technology, and facilities in excellent condition. Next, as you're aware, the district was authorized, to issue $45 million in Class B bonds in November of 2017. We've already spent approximately $30 million in bond funding for things such as new construction, including 9 school gymnasiums and the renovation of the Choice Learning Academy. This past spring, the district sold the final $15 million in bond funds, and our current plans to spend phase 3 of our bond proceeds include a construction of a gym at the Valencia Global Academy and Alternative Learning Center site. In addition, we are completing final renovations to the Choice Learning Academy, including remodeling the front office, exterior painting, and a few final classroom alterations. And finally, bond funds are earmarked to be spent on renovations, including fire alarms and future renovations at 3 schools who have yet to receive any bond funding remodel. Those schools include Westwood, Granada West, and Sevilla East. In the near future, district staff will meet with these staffs at these schools to come to consensus regarding the best use for these renovation dollars. This will leave approximately $2.5 million in bond funds remaining for future projects to be determined. On the final slide, we wanted to present a partial listing of Esser funded capital projects that are ongoing, including polished concrete at school sites, accessible playgrounds at 4 sites with a high concentration of self-contained special needs students, water bottle filler stations at schools, hand washing stations as needed, and digital marquees at schools. The district continues to utilize our Esser grant to fund capital spending that will have a lasting impact on clean air, access to clean drinking water, outdoor learning and play spaces, and quick and efficient delivery of school messages. We also mentioned that there's an asterisk by the digital marquee. We are evaluating our Esser dollars right now, and if we cannot get it through Esser dollars, then we're going to move that funding to capital override. Lastly, our team identified 2 projects, including elevator car replacements and cooling tower renovations, that we will be working with the Arizona School Facilities Board to apply and hopefully be approved for building renewal grant. As one can easily see, the district has many capital spending plans to continue to keep the schools, equipment, and facilities in excellent condition and to help ensure the best education possible for our students. Subject to your questions, this concludes this portion.
Yeah, I wanted to just, I know there's, working in the construction industry, just knowing what's going on with pricing and how volatile and how risky it is to be building right now. I really appreciate our district's commitment to our plan and building that final gym. It's much needed. I think it's one of those things that gives our district an advantage over other charter schools, and also it's something that 3 campuses or 3 schools essentially get to utilize, which is just a really good bang for the buck. The other one noting, as I've mentioned previously, I attended these schools a decade and a half ago, and I was a student here, and I attended Granada, but I was in the GATE program, so I got to go to essentially spend time over at the Sevillas, got to spend time at Simpson, and I got to spend time at Westwood. And at Westwood in particular, I remember my GATE class was in a portable building. And to me, that was 17 years ago. It's a little disappointing that we still have students in that same exact classroom I was in, because those buildings are meant to be temporary. They don't perform well for our children's, from a standpoint for their health, for the air that they're breathing. There's been no daylight in those, and daylight is one of those proven methods of increasing student performance and health. So we need to get rid of those things. So I'm glad to see that there's some money allocated for Westwood, and really taking a hard look at all of our portables that have outlived their lifespan is something that's really important to me. Question for you is just which of the contracts laid out with our bond, I know that at least I believe the gym is kind of completed with design and stuff like that, but is there anything else we haven't issued contracts for design yet?
Well, we have not issued contracts for design on the schools. That's yet to be determined how we're going to spend the proceeds of the bond at Westwood, Sevilla East, and what the design is going to be. The design over at the site that you mentioned, the gymnasium or the mini gymnasium over at Valencia Gap and ALC is currently it's being modified. It's under redesign. Downsizing it due to construction prices, just making it into a full-size gym, but it's not going to be as large as.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions and comments I had.
I have one question about student technology. Is that the $150,000 that were in collaboration with Cartwright, Phoenix College, and City of Phoenix for increased Wi-Fi and internet? Or is that something
Look at
different?
the purchase order to see it was $50,000. Our stake in Divide was $50,000. Ruben's shaking his head yes. I think we paid for that out of the capital override. Didn't list, and all those numbers were approximate. You saw that they're nice. So they were approximate estimates at those expenses. That $50,000 I didn't list as a project, but I believe that was funded out of the capital.
Thank you, and I just really appreciate that collaboration, and it's going to do a lot of long-term benefits for our community. So I appreciate that.
I'm hoping the bathrooms have more than one stall.
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you.
These are the group restrooms. We've already quite a few of them, but we're under additional renovations of some other ones that after 20 to 25 years of use, they need a thorough just retiling, fixtures, new stalls, the whole 9 yard overhaul. So that's what we're planning on sites.
Thank you. I know one stall does not work for a bunch of kindergarten students. I can guarantee that. The gyms, as Mr. Solorio said, I'm so excited too, because this, finally gives everyone an opportunity to have those. And then the marquees, I love every time I go by the Choice Learning Center and see that marquee. So I think that will really add just maybe a little oomph to our school sites. And Mr. Solorio, back to gyms. Even public schools, all of them do not have gymnasiums. So that even puts us even further ahead of them. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Unless you want to stay up and talk about the financial report.
Dana would not.
Are you sure?
I must sit down now. Thank you.
All right. J3 financial report. Anybody have any questions? Anybody want to back up? Okay. All right, moving K, comments, communication. K1, comments from governing board members. I want to just thank you one more time for doing the staff wellness surveys. I think it's really important that we continue to do our little check-ins on them. And I appreciate that Dr. Maez has been actually taking action on those. And that is obviously important because doing surveys, something has to be done. It just can't sit there and just look at the information. So I do appreciate that we're acting upon those comments. K2, governing board direction and/or agenda item requests.
Yes, I wanted to bring up something that's related to our bond project. I think when I first came on the board, I think one of the first things, I think was a couple weeks before there was an article that came out that was regarding procurement, construction, architecture, which of course is my field of expertise. So I quickly kind of dove into it. It was a concerning article that made some good points. Through previous leadership, I brought up the wanting of the creation of a bond oversight. So at least we could, from an optics standpoint, make sure that we were being good fiduciary agents for our school district. That never came to fruition, and now we're $35 million into our $5 million bid, and we continue to do direct select through one GPA for our design services, and it's really concerning. And I say it's concerning because I don't know how privy everyone is to what happened in Scottsdale, but in Scottsdale there was kind of this kickback game that they got caught. I think in 2016 they got the superintendent, or was it the assistant superintendent, ended up getting caught taking some money in under the table, and it was through this procurement process that this was kind of allowed to proliferate, and it really only works under this kind of direct select environment. And I expressed my concerns at the time, and I was a rookie board member. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers, and I let it go. But I think we're at a point where we're again $35 million in, and we continue to direct select, and it's very concerning from an optics standpoint to do that. We need to, in my opinion, pursue a more competitive selection process for that. It is the right thing to do for our district. It's the right thing to do for our community, for our students. It spurns competition. There's lots of benefits to it, and so I think I'm sitting here now 3 years later, and I would hate to be here to understand full understanding how this works, how this competitive environment works, and to have an entire $45 million bid or project go to one party via direct select methodology. It's just not good optics. It's not smart, especially when we already had a microscope on our school district. So I wanted to just say that out loud. And for me, this is really stepping out of my comfort zone. This is really me trying to be courageous and take a stand for what I think is right for a school district. I have no other skin in this game. I'm in the industry, but I don't do K through 12 work. I have stand nothing to gain other than that I know that this is the right thing to do for our school district moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio.
I just want to chime in with Mr. Solario on this. We did not talk before this, but he hit a lot of excellent points, and I want to just throw my support behind that, especially with our last, $10 million and the volatility of the market and the dynamics of other districts. We want to be transparent in this. We want to do it right, and I'm all for that to be above reproach. And so whatever we have to do that, I would be for that. So I stand behind Mr. Solaro and his statements.
Thank you. Moving to K3 comments from the superintendent and executive team.
Good evening, everyone. First, before I forget that thought, I just want to say that I heard our governing board members loud and clear, and I applaud courageousness. And so our team will definitely consider your requests, and we too value transparency, and so we're going to make it happen. First, I just want to thank all of the hard work going on in our schools. I'm trying to be out there as much as I can just to see it with my own eyes, and every time I'm out there, I'm just in awe of the hard work of just everyone from our classified staff. I know I got to meet with, or I've spoken to several health office staff, and they're just working so hard and staying so positive, and I'm just so grateful for their hard work. And even our parent volunteer coordinators are so excited to be working with our parents, and yet they're crosswalk guards right now when they need to be, or they're helping out in the front office, and they're doing whatever it takes. And all of our teachers, you saw the options that we're providing for our teachers, and regarding quarantine, and because these are hard decisions. We have parents who understand the health risks and are keeping their kids home, but yet they want instruction for their children. And we have staff who want to give instruction, yet you saw the numbers in the classrooms, and it's hard. It's really hard decisions to make. And so I just appreciate everyone's support as we're making these difficult decisions, trying to do the best by our children, yet at the same time understanding we have people working really hard at our schools, and we're trying to make sure that we can keep them at their best too. So I want to thank everyone and our leaders that are doing all that they can to support our staff. I'm just so grateful for everyone. I'm thinking about right now, again, as you mentioned, our board president mentioned the survey results. I see Angie Frankenfeld out there, and I know Saturday morning we were both up early looking at the data, problem solving. The wellness team, I want to thank the team for looking at the big picture, analyzing, and soon we'll have a more thorough analyzed product for us to review. But at the same time, we have data, and we're ready to act on that data. And we've been working, I've been working with Mandy and Melissa to do that, and I'm so grateful for their support and leadership. I'm thankful to all those who took the time to complete the survey, because I know everyone's busy, but we care about everyone in our Alhambra family, and your voices are important. And so we're considering all that input given and problem solving together to see what we can do to support. With that, we have our business services. I'm so grateful for I see human resources, business services out there who are leading their teams. Again, taking the input, they've been working with their teams to try to figure out how we can respond, how we can put more feet on the ground to do the work and support our teams, how we can make sure people are being compensated appropriately. And it's not easy work, and we have small teams that are doing that, to support our 10,000 kids, 1,000 employees. And I'm just thankful for your efforts. Please thank your teams and make sure they know. And I know at the school level, it's hard if you wonder, what are the district office staff doing? Our teams out here were here late yesterday evening, just like our school teams were there late yesterday evening, and everyone's working hard. And so I'm just, again, so grateful. And I appreciate all of us keeping in mind that everything that we're doing, it's all about our beautiful children, the 10,117 children out there in our schools. Thank you to all of our teachers who are loving and supporting them each and every day. We see you, we hear we know how hard you're working. Thank you to our leaders for taking care of our teachers, our staff out there. And if there are concerns, again, our leaders are here to listen and support. I'm about to be out there doing some listening and learning tours. I'm excited to be out there to hear more. And I'm just so grateful that we're all doing this work together. And so thank you all for your hard work. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. Moving to L, meeting closing. L1, next governing board meeting is September 16, 2021. The next regular meeting of the governing board will be held September 16, 2021. At the next governing board, members will have a group photo taken. So please make sure you're ready for that. And on September 27th, from 3:15 to 3:45, just a reminder, is tentatively set for the virtual IB presentation for the governing board members, and more information will follow. L2, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn so Dana can go watch the football game.
Thank you, Mr. Conchas. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.